to the Unofficial Disney Tonight Show podcast. If there's one thing this world definitely does not have enough of, it's podcasts. So into the breach steps comedian David Studebaker and his zany band of sidekicks to bring you a multimedia experience unlike anything the world has ever seen.
Please give it up for my dear friend and your host, Mr. David Studebaker!
Yes, wow. Hey, very exciting. Thank you. So this is a very exciting episode. We're not even going to do any of our hijinks or stories or sketches. We're jumping right into the interview because we have just an incredible guest for you, the amazing Mindy Rickles. She's an incredible actress, comedian. She also happens to be the daughter of Mr. Potato Head. We are very excited, and I'll just quickly welcome in. We're doing this out of order because we're doing it live and fun. I'm going to go fully out of order. I'm going to welcome in Jake first. Jake, thank you for being here. Yeah. You and your lavender background looking great in that shirt. I don't know what happened. Minnie's going to have some fun with that shirt, I think. I love it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Mando, thank you for joining. Thank you. I love the necklace. You're dolling it up. It's amazing. And as always, it's not my fault. She wants to wear the helmet. I have totally made it clear she's welcome to not have the helmet and sweat in that thing, but she loves it, and her thousands of TikTok fans love it too. Luke LaCoy, the co-host who doesn't like being a co-host. We're gonna hope that he's gonna talk a little bit tonight. You never know, but we do love him. He's amazing, and he's Canadian. And then, as always, my announcer, James Creviston. This is totally out of order. We have a very large age range that watches this show. So, people will be familiar with the great comedy of Don Rickles. But, he was Mr. Potato Head. But more importantly, we are going to talk about that. But this is going to be the world of Mindy Rickles. We are excited about the world of Mindy Rickles here. Now, just full disclosure, Mindy and I have a dear friend in common, Christine King, who is my dear friend and manager, and Mindy's dear friend.
She won't be my manager.
Oh, we'll talk to her about that. And I'm just going to say thank you, Mindy. Welcome in. How are you tonight?
I mean, God, Dave, as my dad would have said, what a thrill. My God. Be here with these big stars, Jacob and James and Luke and the one with the helmet. I mean, it's just, Christine, she doesn't ever offer me anything. So when she mentioned this, I was like, when? I was so thrilled. And I'm just very, very excited to be here. And she was like, she gave me a test beforehand. I needed to know all of Disney because, my Disney goes back to the 1890s. The wonderful world of Disney with the little Tinkerbell, So that followed with like Wild Kingdom, which I thought that's what the show was on. Wild Kingdom, which was an old show with like Lorne Greene. I'm sure none of you know who that is. Maybe James, but maybe not. Anyway, he was on with the animals. No, I was thrilled. And what else am I doing, Dave?
Are you doing a lot of any like Zoom stand-up shows or any of those?
I was doing a couple through COVID, and now they're starting to have they've had those on these sort of outdoor drive-in shows. But yeah, whenever they do those, it's always during a time when the pandemic, I watch all the negative stuff of when it's soaring, and it's always soaring. So I haven't done one because I'm afraid, because now I don't go out unless I have like 16 masks, like a shield and the helmet, and I'm wearing a hazmat suit. I have a fire truck that follows me. So I'm afraid right now. Everyone else is, all these young comics, and they just want to get up there no matter what. And if they get COVID, hey, no problem. But for me, it wouldn't be good for me. So I haven't really done those.
Prior to when things were shut down, and you had a regular show at the Laugh Factory,
right?
And it was Mindy Mondays or something.
Monday, Mindy. But frankly,
Monday, Mindy. I apologize. I am so sorry.
If I go back now, they'll be like, who? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Mindy, Friday. I don't know if they'll remember me there, but I'm going to scratch outside the door and see. Last show, speaking of which, the last show I had there, because I would do a show where, there'd be like a lineup of comics, but then I'd bring in an iconic comic to do like a Q&A with. And so I had Bob Saget and I had Jeff Garlin. And then the last show I had, who's not an iconic comic, but he loves comedy, and this relates to you, was John Stamos, who is, I'm sure all of you with Disneyland, your leader, right? Because I've never seen a person more obsessed. I mean, he had his honeymoon there. I think he proposed to his wife, in a onesie around Disneyland, and they took over the park, because when you have that kind of money, God, that's what you do, is you take the park. So, he's obsessed with Disneyland, and so is his wife, I know. So, so he was actually my last show there.
It's funny. There's been a John Stamos theme on our show. Our last guest, he's an actor who's been on a bunch of TV shows, and he was on The Grandfather, the show that John had, the previous actor, but he originally was screen testing for a regular role, and then he ended up just doing a small guest starring. But I guess there was an actor who did much better than him on a screen test with John. And afterwards, he was in the bathroom with John Stamos, and John Stamos was really kind to him, but he gave him a shoulder rub, and he's like, "It's gonna be all right. You're gonna be okay." And he was like, it was one of his major big moment stories of John Stamos gave him a shoulder rub. He didn't get the gig, but he had the Stamos.
No, I mean, the first time I met John, and I've been married, it'll be 24 years in about 2 weeks, but the first time I met John, and my husband and I have been married, I don't know, 15 years or whatever. And I left my husband at that dinner. I got up and I said, "You're done," and I had to go back to him because John was like, "I'm not interested," but I was his age, so he wasn't interested. But so yeah, I was very, excited to meet John, and it was, yeah. So now I know him really well through the years, and he's a great guy and very talented
and a huge Disney fan. I know
Disney fan. I'm sure he still has it. The D from the Disney sign.
Oh,
he bought, I don't know the original D, but he had it. I mean, he's moved since, but he had it in front of his house. So he was on the hill.
Wow.
His address is 629. His phone number is 3. Now, so anyway, and he had the huge D of Disney. So
I feel like he could do an entire episode just of show and tell, like a Disney show. That's incredible to have.
Disney Cribs.
Disney
Cribs.
Yes.
MTV Cribs here.
Maybe someday it'll go from John Stamos stories to actually John Stamos on the show. We'll see. Although, Mindy, it would be a bit of a step down to go from you to John. I don't want to insult John, but we've already hit the mountaintop.
Yeah, how could you? I mean, I said to Christine, it's because they really want John, right? That's why they want John. No, it's because your father was Mr. Potato Head and he was John Rickles. I said, oh, okay, well then I feel better. So
the thing is with you, because you're a talented actress, you're a talented comedian, all these people, but I feel like you do bring a very unique perspective to just the entertainment industry in general. So let's start just childhood wise. Hanging out in Vegas, was that an enjoyable experience?
Well, I didn't see that much of the nightlife before Vegas. I just wanted to say my first childhood experience of Disneyland was going with, and again, most of your viewers may not know who this is, but going with Bob Newhart and his family to Disneyland, and it would be comparable today to going with, J-Lo and A-Rod. So it was we had the special driver and we didn't have to stand in the lines, and, so that was my first Disney experience. But in terms of Vegas, sometimes we would go, often Bob Newhart would be playing there, and his kids, we were very close to his kids. And so I remember one time he was at the MGM or something, and they were staying in Elvis's suite.
Wow.
Yeah, which was huge or whatever. And it had an elevator, and they showed us, where the bullet hole was. That Elvis one night when he was in a mood, as we all are, took a gun you know, sort of like a Phil Spector, again, my references, you know, and shot the gun into whatever, probably at someone in the elevator and missed them and, you know, made a hole in the elevator door. And we used to go to Circus, which was very different than, I'm sure, than Disney. It was like one trapeze guy fall into a net most of the time. And then the craziest thing you would do there was go, I mean, this was insane, into the magic shop. And there was like a glass with fake water and a fake plastic spider in it. And that was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I just pissed myself, you know. That was like very exciting. You know, the people I mention are from so long ago, like Frank Sinatra would be there and Charo. Again, these are people that
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Charo? Yeah. She was like, you know, the 1960s version of Sofia Vergara.
Well, and I got to say, already I was excited to have you on, but now I'm doubly excited because especially James and I, we are constantly bringing up references that Jake and Mando have no idea what we're talking about. So when you, like, to us, like, Newhart is better than J-Lo and A-Rod to James and I.
That's
and
what I was
like,
about to say. I almost said that.
And all, like, you're speaking our language. I don't know, Jake, do you know who Bob Newhart is?
I know names.
Oh, see what I mean? It's just the kids. They don't know anything these days.
Yeah, no, I'm saying to Jake, it's like he saw them in a lineup. You know, I know names, the faces. I don't know Elvis. Who is he? You know, the rapper. So it's like, yeah. I mean, I understand.
Actually, getting back to Disneyland, how many times did you go there? And did you always have the Newhart treatment, or did you go back and you're like, I gotta wait in a line? Do you know who I am? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I did like a Reese Witherspoon. I used to go wasted as a kid. No, I'm kidding. Again, this is like an anti-Disney thing. I've always hated rides, Dave. Let's be honest. For me, they made me car sick. They made me nauseous. Again, I'll throw it to James with a reference. I'm like the female, you know, Richard Lewis. Like, and I can't stand movement of any kind. So I never really want to go on the rides, which I'm sure your audience, everyone just turned this off because they're like, who was that? But that's just, so I know I would get nauseous just sitting in a chair.
You know, it's funny. You are second week in a row. Same guy who had the Stamos story. He had the exact same experience where the rides would make him sick. And so his favorite ride was It's a Small World.
Oh,
because,
loved it.
Yeah.
Me back, it's just like shopping. You just said, Mindy, let's go shopping. Oh my God, Small World. I love that.
Me too. It's a very polarizing ride, but I love it.
I also loved when you go in the little boat and the little houses. Is that still there? It was
that's my background right here. That's Storybook Land.
Storybook Land. I thought, oh, it's Venice behind him. I didn't really know what that was, but now I realized it is.
You know, it's funny. This was the first time I've had this as my background, and Christine didn't tell me that you enjoyed that ride. Yes. It was meant to be. That first time I've used that background. So that.
Later she'll say, I worked with you on Storybook Land. You were supposed to remember that. So, yeah, but I did love that ride as well.
Your teens and 20s, again, everyone has different experiences as like someone with a parent in the entertainment industry. Were you partying it up?
No, I was like a nun.
Nice.
I did nothing, and I should have, Dave. I should have. I remember at my prom, like they were all asking, Mindy, will you feel uncomfortable, you know, if we freebase? Because it was really high. You know, if we freebase here in the limo, will that make you feel uncomfortable, Mindy? And I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll read, you know, the Bible. It's fine. So it was just, yes. No, I was so just pristine and just little miss, you know, never did a thing wrong.
And then also with dating, I've heard you tell a story about your approachability in terms of you were not always the most approachable person for a man to come up to and talk to in a bar.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I always played like bitchy woman in bar. Like that was my, you know, you go on, Dave, about my extreme, acting career, which I had a couple of very major roles, but more often than not, it would be like bitchy woman at bar. So when you say, why didn't they come up to me? I don't know, because I was, too much like my father, and, men don't want to be insulted. I used to think on a date, that if I got a guy on a date, like laughing, I'm like, oh, he's really into me, and then like my husband said to me, like he liked it, but he goes, most men are not like, oh, she was hysterical, I can't wait to follow her, they're not. I'm like, oh, he really laughed when I did that bit in the middle. And my friends were like, I don't think that's, I don't think he's calling you back, that, they wanted like more of a sexy kind of a girl. And I was just, I would imitate them at the table, which they didn't really like on the first date. So it was very tough.
Amanda, did you have a question for Mindy?
I did. My question is, what is like your craziest experience in entertainment?
One time I went to like Illinois or somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I had to go with this comic who I didn't know, but like the agent was like, he's a very nice guy, whatever. And we had to drive like 3 hours in the middle of the night. I mean, this really isn't crazy because I'm still very prim, and I don't really have crazy. I want to be able to tell you something really exciting. It's not crazy. I don't even want to tell it. Frankly, Dave, I didn't get the memo that Andrew was going to ask me this kind of a question, and that I was going to be put completely on the spot on the biggest podcast in the country, and I don't even know what to do now. I don't even know. I can think of so many times I was humiliated, like doing stand-up, but I don't want to get into that. But was it the most exciting? I don't know. I had a very low SAT score. By the way, Dave, you mentioned earlier the shirt that Jake is wearing. If the audience could see, it's like he just, came back from a luau. Dressed in the same, may I call it a blouse, Jake? May I call it that?
No,
Jake, I'm not finished yet. I'm not done. Jake is wearing the same blouse that I think I wore my 7th grade yearbook picture. And the same hairstyle I had. The same hairstyle, because in those days, James, stay with me, because James will be the only one that knows who this is. Jake has sort of a Dorothy Hamill cut, but it's a little messier.
I see it.
Luke is staring at the screen like he is 15 sedatives. He's like, Dave brought this woman on who has the voice and face of her father, and it's freaking me out. No wonder she had the dates, because if I go like, but no one can see my face. He's like, I don't know any of her references, and it's like she seems like she looks like the father and talks like him. When is this over? So, okay. All right. Well, again, what was the question, Mando?
What was your crazy?
That was good. No, man, we got it. That was perfect.
Let me ask it again. She didn't know the answer last time, so let's ask her again.
That was beautiful. I love Mindy, because normally I'm the one roasting Jake and Luke for not paying attention, but you're doing my job for me. So I love it. Thank you.
Luke he looks like he's a pilot on a plane. It had like very few facial expressions. He's just going forward, and we're landing. Good afternoon. Welcome to flight 601. He's very serious and on his way. And again, that's the face. I wish the audience.
They can see. Well, part of our audience is on YouTube.
And don't say people that, oh, she, look just like her father. Please don't say that, because, I've heard it enough, and that's why I'm on a lot of meds. So don't even bother saying that to me. Okay. But Luke has the face of what my dates were like. When can I drop it? I've got to get this plane out of the taxiing off the runway. All right. And I love, Dave, the way with the coffee, you're like a major Jimmy Kimmel, and look up for a second, I forgot his name. All of those hosts, that's great.
Got it. That's all I can bring. I don't have a stage or an audience, so I got I got the mug. That's all I got. Before we're going to transition into some of those acting roles, including, I know Jake's very excited to talk about Tales from the Crypt with you, but we just to get the potato in the room out of the way. That experience being Mr. Potato Head and doing that had to have been an odd juxtaposition, because most comics, like, we're not generally Pixar characters. What was that whole Mr. Potato Head era like for you and for him?
This is how my dad was. He'd be like, I'm going to be Mr. Potato Head in a Pixar movie. I wish I could tell you, but if you only knew how much money they're paying me for this. That's the kind of thing he would say to me. But no, it was very exciting, and it was really great. And my dad was thrilled to have all these kids know he was Mr. or he'd tell them, I'm Mr. Potato Head, and they'd be very excited about it. And so all of that. And then when my kids were little, they got to go to the Pixar studios, and this was like a very, you weren't allowed to go in there. And there was the huge Mr. Potato Head. Well, this is the one that they put in Disneyland. I was there, but isn't it the other section or something?
Yeah, it's in California Adventure. And when you're standing in line, they have someone. Well, I think they recorded Dawn giving canned insults.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So
and then
walks by, right?
Yeah, and so there's someone inside the control room, and they look on a camera and choose the right insult for that person.
I want that job. I want that job.
Yeah. So it was very, they got to see the Mr. Potato Head before, he was in the park, and the fact that that's there, forever is such a great tribute to my dad. So he was so excited about it. Really was. And like, he was mostly a comic. I mean, he started as an actor, and he went to the Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. So when he got to do that, it's like doing that and doing the movie Casino. Those were like major highlights in his life. And they both happened, much later. It wasn't like he was 40, he was much older, but that's why also he was so thrilled, to have the opportunity to do those things.
And actually, I will say, Mindy, Luke created a Mr. Potato Head of me. And I want to just say, before we show it to Mindy, viewer discretion advised. What Luke did is it's horrifying. And I'm going to share it right now. Mindy, I want to get your thoughts on what Luke put together there.
That looks like a cyst I had on my arm. It turned out to be scosis sarcoma. What can I say? I mean, Dave, that's the kind of guy that asked me out. That's wow, Luke, what can I say? I'd say stick with being a pilot. That is disturbing.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry you had to see that, Mindy. I apologize. We'll go into the acting days, and Jake's I'm gonna let Jake lead off because he's a big Tales from the Crypt fan. So Jake, take it away.
I actually have two questions. So I noticed that you were in Tales from the Crypt, and your role name was Girl at the Bar, which is really funny because earlier you mentioned how you were always Girl at the Bar. And literally 2 years later, you were in Herman's Head and was Woman at the Bar.
Okay, Jake, first of all, thank you for referencing my extensive roles of my early career. Yes, those were, you had to be a certain type of woman at the bar, Jake. Okay, they didn't hire every single woman at the bar that walked in. All right, I was like, they were like, she has something. In Tales from the Crypt, it was like, she has something. Could it be, I don't know, that her father is starring in this episode? Oh, it's not that. It's not that. It's her talent. It's the way she walked up to the bar. I mean, I don't think any other actress could have done that, I mean, it's a shame that, the way it is today, how every kid is like, if they're related, if I'm the seventh cousin of Harry Hamlin and I'm 4'1", I'm a runway model in Paris. It's shame like that in my day, because I would be Jake. You would know, I would be the biggest thing around. There would be a film, Woman in Bar, starring daughter of Don Rickles, who? Mindy Rickles. I mean, that's what it would have been like. Yes.
I think it still has legs, Mindy. Let's pitch that to Netflix. Let's make it happen. Your dad really wanted you to be an actress, right? He kind of emphasized that a little bit more for you than stand up. He was concerned. He knew you'd be funnier than him, and so he was concerned,
No, he never wanted me to do stand up, and I've only done stand up for, aside from this year, like for 7-8 years. So he never wanted me to do stand up. He's like, you can't go on the road, and that's for men and it's tough, and so he always was like, oh, Mindy's going to be an actress, because I was like funny and I was always like performing and imitating everyone. But it was, so different then. And it was like, you got the kind of things that some of these celebrity kids get, like you get an agent or not really, but they're going to send you out. But I was too timid. I go out for like 9.5 weeks, and no one knows what that is except for James. But, it was not right for me. It's like once I went in, or twice, to Seinfeld, and it was like, Jerry was in there and they wanted me to come back and all that. So it was like, I don't think I expressed enough that I really want to do comedy. And that's where I was comfortable, because I was extremely, not only was I very, pristine and like a nun, I was extremely shy. Like I couldn't even, I was like, I didn't say a word. So kind of like Luke. It was very hard for me. Luke's like, when is she done?
No, this is
Mindy, that's face all the time,
yeah,
right?
no, that you are killing with Luke. That is Luke's version of when you see me flying all over the screen laughing. When that smile Luke has, that's what you're doing to him. He's Canadian. He's just very stoic and Canadian.
Yeah, see how I'm intimidated even now, being a great woman at bar, I'm intimidated by Luke and his career. I don't think I could have done stand up in my early 20s, even if I was able to say, I don't care what you say, Jen, I'm gonna do it, because it's like so tough, because it's the audience right there, and they don't care like who your father was or whatever, so, or they're going to be even, harder on you because of it, much tougher, I think, than the rejection from acting, because it's so immediate. And it's not like, you were great, thanks.
Yeah, it's the only art form where people feel comfortable telling you that they're not enjoying your performance. In like, no one goes to like the opera or a symphony and just starts, booing or heckling Oh, well, James, yeah, he's a wild animal.
Right.
But most civilized people don't. I mean, for me, I've been doing it 12 years, and I started at 18 or 19. But when you're more introverted and there is that shyness and there is that fear, that's like, for a lot of people, that's like the biggest barrier to entry.
Right.
Because if you're already feeling like, like just talking to people stuff, and then you have that. I was annoying and I had unreasonable confidence. And so, but for most people, and Luke and James are comedians as well. And I think you guys both in your own ways have dealt with similar things.
Right.
That's when you guys were supposed to jump in. That's fine. You know what?
I just beat him up in the parking lot. If you don't like my jokes, I just beat you up in the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
No, well, all right. James, do you have an opinion on this, or for another 20-25 minutes?
No, I love hearing you talk, Mindy. You're hilarious and amazing. I am like, this is the greatest day for me.
Really? Because when when we get off and my husband's with me, I'm gonna be like, my head hurts. Feel good, I'm nauseous. And someone would be like, wow, it must be so much fun at home with Mindy. It's a nightmare. Like 10 years older than me. He's like, you were like 90, because he's the one that's like swimming and doing all this stuff, and then I'm like, is it time for my pill, the Xanax? But No, I mean, God, I had something really great to say. I looked at Luke, I got intimidated again. When you get those great nights when things are going great, it feels terrific. And I remember for like a really long time when I first started, it sounds so odd, because Jeff Garland helped me and I was just doing great every show, every night, like for a long time. And then Jeff's like, you're gonna bomb. I'm like, no, Jeff, I'm not bombing. So I don't really know what you're talking about. And he's like, you're going to, and it's gonna happen over and over. And then suddenly it started happening. And I was like getting in my head going, and I'm always gonna bomb, and this is never gonna stop. Because that's what I'm like. When anything is negative, I'm like, this will never go away, you know. Then then it's like, you know, more the ups and downs. But yeah, if you know, it's not a great feeling. It's like when Jake and I wore the same blouse in my 70s, you know, it still hurts me. But yeah.
Luke, let's have you ask Mindy a question. I'm so sorry to inconvenience you, buddy, but please, if you could ask Mindy a question.
Yeah, I'll look sideways so I don't intimidate you. So, like, being a stand-up, do you have any, like, the most memorable show that you can think of, or most memorable club moment that you had performing?
I did Gotham in New York, and that was great. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Luke. The reason I thought I could even, you know, I don't know, do stand-up or that I was funny. I mean, I knew I was funny, and it wasn't like I'm funny at the kitchen table in Arkansas with Aunt Sylvia. You know, it's like, oh, you thought because you were funny at your high school in Alabama, that means you can be a stand-up. No, but like I would perform or I'd get up at my parents' like parties where, you know, they would have that day's version of, you know, Beyonce or who, you know, like all those kind of people. And I wouldn't know what I was going to say. Like maybe I'd have a couple words, but of course they know my parents, so it's a little easier, but they were not people that were going to be like, oh, Mindy, you know, like that, or whatever. And, you know, I would start doing a whole thing or maybe on my dad, and maybe I'd start insulting like Bob Saget and John Stamos, you know, and John be like, I think you're funnier than your father. And I'm like, that's it, John. And I mean, my dad would not, and at his 89th birthday, I got up in front of like all these people, whatever. And he was like, the next day's like, did you make all of that up? Did you write that? And I was like, well, some of it did. And then I just thought off the top of my head, it was funny. It was funny, you know. So I knew like he loved it, you know. So yeah, so those kind of things. He would be happy to have heard this. I got screams at his memorial, I must say. So now I think, yeah, like Judd Apatow was there. Yeah, I was great. So I think I should just do like when COVID's over, like a tour of memorials. Now go to a city, look in the obits, like who's gone. Hey, tell me a couple of things about the guy and what, you know, Aunt Phyllis and Aunt Louise, who slept with them. And I can like do a great, I'm going to kill.
It does open up an interesting dynamic through the years with your dad. It sounds like he was a little either just not forthcoming with the effusive love or a little competitive with you on that front. He was
very loving, but that was like, it was a little, you know, just, you know, he's like, I'm like, how do you, you know, because he didn't write his material ever. So I'm like, how do you think of those? I don't know, Mindy, I just think of them. I'm a genius, you know. That's how it went. But also, you reminded me because when I spoke at his memorial, Jeff Ross was there and I spoke. And then 6 months later, you know, he called me up and I'm like, oh, which is fine. But I'm like, oh, this must be something like, you know, there was a plaque of your dad here and can I take it with your dad? You know, so he called me up and he goes, listen, I'm doing a Netflix series of, you know, we're going to roast people of the past and we're going to roast Abraham Lincoln and we're going to roast Hitler. Well, actually, they were going to roast, but not really. It was really a roast of Hitler. And Anne Frank was sort of like the person that was going to be roasted, but it was Hitler that was going to be roasted. He goes, and I'd like you to play your dad. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, and I thought, and he goes, no, I want you to play your dad. And I'm like just me, like all dressed up and then like in a tuxedo, it's like, no, I'm like, well, what are you going to do? So they put me, with the bald head, and my audition was my dad's memorial. So there you go. And it was such a great experience. I had such a great time. And
I'm glad when you said my audition, I got worried for a second that Jeff would have actually made you audition for the role of your father, which would be just like, especially after his passing, like what a horrible thing to make you go through.
Right, that would be.
We are really quickly going to do a message from one of our sponsors.
The Unofficial Disney Tonight Show is sponsored by Luke's eBay account, LaCoy Collectibles. Items include a 1999 Anteater teeny beanie baby. only $2.99. You won't be antsy in your pantsy. A collection of Girl Scout patches. Tag along and wear these patches at the next time your shortbread is craving a Thin Mint. And a 1984 Los Angeles Olympic photo album, perfect for displaying your family's unathletic photos. Find all of your favorite collectibles by searching Luke Tizzle or LaCoy Collectibles on eBay. Now back to you, David.
Those little, the little Happy Meal, if I had the money, absolutely. That looks, and the presentation, it's just so much money behind this. It's amazing.
We spare no expense. With sponsors like that, we have to really put the money into the show. Were you a watcher of Disney Sunday nights? And if so, do you have a favorite movie of that time?
Well, let's see. I was a watcher, and Christine said, why don't you mention the Apple Dumpling Gang? That was one of Christine's first things I was supposed to study on the list. So, and then I mentioned something, and she goes, that wasn't Disney. And I'm like, oh, okay. American Hustle wasn't Disney. So Freaky Friday was a Disney movie, was it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was like one of my most favorite movies of all time.
That's a great choice.
Yeah, I love that. I watched it on Sunday nights because, it was very comforting, and even this is before my time, but the original Mouseketeers, like Annette Funicello, I knew who she was, and so it was sort of a comforting thing.
And James, did you have you have a question for Mindy, I believe? Yes.
I do, yeah. As you bring that up, because Freaky Friday has been remade, I think 2 other times now.
Well, and then they did that Jason Bateman version of it too.
Yeah. Switch. Now it's like the grocer switches places with your uncle's cleaner. It's like, who cares?
So for that one, it's considered a classic. And what do you think makes it such a classic film?
It was made for me because, as a kid, I always wanted to be a grown-up. It was like for Halloween, I was like, I'm woman in bar, I always would watch my mother, and she would put on makeup before she'd go to shows with my dad. Because my parents, it wasn't like my mother cooked dinner and my dad came home at 6 from the office. My mother, on Sundays, she would try to cook a dinner, be like spaghetti sauce. And she hasn't smoked in 40 years, but she would smoke then. And the room would be covered in smoke. She's like, Mindy, this takes me forever. Please leave. It was like she would get dressed up, to go to his shows. And I always wanted to copy, the makeup and the hair. So the idea of her switching places with her mother, I love that. And I also loved, I love the idea of the mother, goes back to school and she knows. And I was like this as a kid, I was 11 and they were playing spin the bottle at some party. Literally we're all 11 and there was some some little boy. There was a guy, grown man at the spin the bottle. So there was this little kid sitting next to me and I wasn't playing because I was a nun and that was too racy for me. And I remember I looked at him and I was like, Brad, I'm so glad you were not involved in this. And he looked at me like like Luke looks at me and went right over to play the game.
We usually like to end the show similar to Inside the Actors Studio. They would do the pivot questions at the end.
Oh my God, I loved Inside the Actors
Right?
Studio. Oh,
yeah, the best.
you know what that is, right, Jake? Jake's
I don't.
blocks.
David has mentioned it like 30 times, and I have no idea what it is.
You've had no idea what I've been saying this whole time.
Jake, go back to the Legos, Jake. Don't worry yourself about these kinds of things. I mean, when you get to be my age, you'll lose your memory and nothing will matter anymore anyway.
Your wonderful husband is a very talented jazz musician. And I've seen him. Is he now? This is going to test because I've seen some YouTube videos of him. Is that a xylophone or a glockenspiel that he's just banging away? Right?
He plays the trumpet, but
there are videos of him on YouTube with like is that a different Ed Mann who's a musician?
I don't recall that, Dave.
What is your favorite classic Disney animated film?
Lady and the Tramp. I loved Lady and the Tramp. I saw that a million times. And, sometimes I think, even though, of course, now the Disney, they're amazing, but it's like sometimes when these old animated things come on, they're just like they bring back, just a special feeling.
I don't know if you're a dog person, but it's so clear that Walt Disney loved dogs and hated cats because like that movie, like the dogs are all like saints and the cats are just absolutely evil. No, sorry, Mando. Mando has like 12 cats, so I apologize, Mando. Walt was not with you on the cats.
I know. It always made me sad when I was a kid because I was always a cat lover. So I was always like watching it, and like Cinderella's stepmom, her cat was like Lucifer. Like
Lucifer was the name of the cat. Yeah. What is your least favorite ride at the Disney parks? I'm assuming one of the roller coasters that made you puke.
The Matterhorn.
Oh yeah.
When it first came, probably I sound like so old, Jake, but in 1952. But when it first, when they first there, it was like we went on it, and I was horrified, and I was like, never again. I was like 10. I'm like, never again.
Well, the other thing with that ride, you get nausea on that one, and you also get like a chiropractic back adjustment because it's so bumpy, and I don't know if they need a WD-40 or I don't know what happened to that thing, but it's rough. So I'm with you on that one. Kurt Russell or James Garner? Who's your guy?
James Garner. Not even a question. But I have to be honest, Robert Wagner.
Oh yeah.
No one knows.
Oh, I know. No, I know Robert Wagner.
90 years old now, and he was on a show, Heart to Heart. Robert Wagner, Brad Pitt. I gotta say, Robert Wagner. Wow. I know it's wrong, but yes.
Well, and Robert Wagner, wasn't he number 2 in Austin Powers? Wasn't that
that's right. That's who he was. For those of you that don't know who he is.
And also, off the record, wasn't he accused of murdering his girlfriend or wife or
Natalie Wood? And
Natalie Wood, of course, it was Natalie Wood. Yes.
Yes.
Might be another show. I'm obsessed with murder and things.
Oh my gosh, same.
Murders and Natalie Wood, and I've read every book, and I have a whole idea on what happened that night. But yes.
Me too.
Look at Mando. If I knew you were really a person, I could. Yeah, and he rubbed my shoulders once at a restaurant because my parents were there, and I was like, "Did you kill her?" And he was like, "Kill her," and he seemed to act like he didn't hear me. But yeah, I would kill to sit with him one night and have him tell me the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I love too that you would choose Robert Wagner, who may have murdered his wife over some of these other
90, who's 90.
Of the 4 Toy Stories, what is your favorite Toy Story movie?
I think the first one, the excitement of going to that, and that's when my dad got his, star, and then they had, the huge party after. They always have those, but it was just, it was very exciting, and just loved that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the movie. Yeah.
That's definitely a beautiful experience. What happened, James? I saw a laugh there. What happened?
No, just because she was like she was more excited about the party than the movie, but then she had to clarify that it was the movie that made her excited.
Can I say something, Dave? The only one that gets me is James. Okay. He knows me now. He knew that the party. Cover later. Did you see how I tried to do that, James? I was like, but really, Toy Story 1, truly, of all the Titanics, I think Titanic 12 was truly my favorite. James, you're absolutely right. The party was the most fun for me. I mean, we used to go when I was a kid. My dad was like very close friends with Tommy Lasorda, who was, coach for the Dodgers. And I couldn't, this is only my parents would do this. We would eat, my dad, and we would all have the hot dog. And then we'd be going out to dinner, like in a fancy restaurant afterwards. Like, who goes to a Dodger game?
So, final question. What gives you purpose?
You're talking to Jake or me?
You.
Because Jake gets combing his hair in the morning. For like my dad, for Jake, it's combing his hair in the morning. It's like me. I'm not even trying to that's what's so weird. And it's like, well, you know why dates didn't want to be with me. I'm not like putting that on like, oh, look, she's trying to be. That's what's so scary, Dave. I wish it were. That like when I come off of this, I'm like, no. And that's what's frightening, because it's like I'm channeling him, but okay. So what was the question? It was, what's my purpose in life?
What gives you purpose? What, yeah.
My children give me purpose, even though, they're older. One of them lives here like it's a hotel, but it's high by. But my children and my husband, I love little kids. For years, I taught preschool. This is like with the acting thing. So I loved working with kids, little kids, and then performing. When I'm performing and it's going great and the audience is laughing, and that's just the best feeling to me. So performing, I've always I've always been like the little performer, and maybe that was part of the fact that I was so unbelievably shy that then when I remember I did a play at Beverly High, and David Schwimmer, who was in my class, was like, that was you. He didn't even know who I was, but it was like I did this play where I was screaming. But even though I was so incredibly shy, that I had this other side to me that just, could perform or wanted to perform and loved, the response I would get. The thing with stand-up is, I guess, they always say it's like, funny is funny. It's like it's not like, well, you're too, even though I do feel like that often, oh, you're too old to be doing that, with acting, even the best actresses, they're 50 and they're like, oh God, the work is going away, whatever. So I think with stand-up, it's not, you don't have to you could start at any time, and
it doesn't really age a whole lot, because if you're doing it well, you're usually sometimes making fun of yourself. And so the more you age, kind of usually the more stuff, life experience you've had to make fun of. And your dad is the perfect testament of you can do it forever, because
my dad was like the oldest, stand-up that was still, working. Yeah. And when I was 20, I wouldn't have had, the life experiences, all the experiences with Luke that I now have to share with audiences, so it was very different. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, James. Gotta love it. I always love the late laugh. You gotta, what was it this time that I missed, James? Tune into, because you and Mindy are simpatico. What was it this time?
Oh, we have a thing going. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the Vegas. You both lived in Vegas.
Yes. Oh, did you live in Vegas? Or
I did, yeah. Not anymore. I don't live there, but I did. I lived in Vegas. Actually, graduated from high school and college there. But I've also met Wayne Newton, and I worked for Siegfried and Roy.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so I've and my grandma used to tell me stories about how they have to dress up to go see your dad's shows and see all the stuff on the strip.
Absolutely. It was
flip-flops and shorts.
Right. Oh God, now it's like short. And my dad would be like, "Thanks for dressing up for the show." When they would come in Hawaiian shirt, Jake
shirt,
and shorts, right? And of course now you in clubs, they're particularly wearing like a tie around the middle. But so it was everyone had to dress up. Oh yeah, Wayne Newton I loved, and also when the Osmonds first came out, and Donnie, and then Marie was just this little girl, and she would come down from above like on a swing, which now would be very like Me Too iffy, But it was, those were things that, I just loved that. And going backstage, I got to go backstage all the time to like Anne Margaret, who was my favorite. Jake, like, nodded off, but like she'd come out with like bikers, and on the bikes, and So
and then you're doubly simpatico because James is also a naval veteran. Your dad played someone in the Navy. Wasn't your dad a veteran too? Didn't he serve?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was on a World War II, but what was his job at? Oh, he would paint the side. Look, I have to ask my husband what my dad did. He would paint the sides of the yeah, he worked for Postmates. It was very big thing. No, he would paint the sides of the ship. He did DoorDash. He invented
No. They call him bosun mates. Like he worked for the bosun mates because he was a seaman first class. I know a lot about your dad.
Oh, you know that?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. See, I don't even know that.
I'm kind of a stalker of comedians. I have Bob Newhart's LP over my bed, like framed. I'm not kidding.
Really?
Bob Newhart watches him at night.
He gives me inspiration. He's the man. What are you talking about? So.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, so two things. One, Dave, and he was all like, I don't know Dave, but I could tell he got all excited to tell me this. This is my husband, Ed. Oh, I don't know if you can see him.
Hey, Ed. Get out of the way.
Calm down. So Dave got all excited. He goes, isn't it true? Your husband, Ed, what did you say?
Well, so I thought it was him. I watched some YouTube videos.
Wait, I forgot. He can't hear you.
Give me the other one.
So okay, see, I'm so good at this. Okay, wait. This is as close to sex as we get. All right.
So did I have this right? Maybe I had the wrong Ed Man, but I watched some YouTube videos of a jazz musician named Ed Man playing, it was either a glockenspiel or a xylophone very well and very fast.
Yeah, that's the Ed Man percussionist. He played for Frank Zappa.
Oh, you know who that is.
Oh yeah, I have in touch with him.
So there's two Ed Man, but you do.
Yeah, I'm a jazz musician, at least part-time jazz musician.
Nice.
So there. Okay, well, there's a lot of Ed Mans in the jazz world. I apologize. Trumpet's a lot cooler than what the other Ed Man was doing, though. It was very odd looking. So you're a trumpeter. I apologize, Ed.
Not only is he trumpeter, but he also wrote, which has been published, his first book, Dave. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And it's called For the Love of Radio.
You'll have to look at the title.
It's called For the Love of Radio. This is like put on the tiny McDonald's burger for two. No, this is For the Love of Radio, and it's truly a love story to me.
It kind of is. Yeah, that's how it works out.
At one point, though, I don't want to tell the ending.
No.
Okay, but anyway, I just think it's really the kind of book that Jake wants to go to bed with him.
I have David's book over here.
It's for you, Jake. It really is. Yeah, and
I wrote it for Jake.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very exciting.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Doesn't matter.
Check it
I
out.
know. It's okay.
For the Love of Radio.
Yeah.
Mindy needs a book, though. Mindy, are you going to write a book?
James, my dad wrote a bunch of books.
Yes.
And my dad wasn't a big writer. So, like, the first page was like, A, B, C. No, no, they were big books, and it was, about him. But, unless I was going to write a book that was like all scandalous, like, my dad cheated and gambled, which I wish I could say that, but he didn't. He didn't even gamble. My parents were married for like 50 years. So I don't think any.
Well, and we'll transition to the audience Q&A, but I will say, Mindy, James does make a substantial amount of his living ghostwriting. So if you want to do the ABC and then have James do the rest, you guys can make something big happen. Mando, would you like to read our first audience Q&A for the great Mindy Rickles?
Of course. This is by an anonymous person. It said, what age did you get interested in being in entertainment?
when I was a kid, I'm like 10 or, you know, and I would put up like a curtain when we would go to Miami Beach, which was another place that my dad worked a lot. And I would imitate, you know, my aunts. What is this, another question? I'm answering a question already.
The
Favorite Toy Story. I'm not there yet.
Sorry, the poll accidentally won.
Ed, he left the room. Okay. I mean, he leaves for a minute. I don't pay him to go in the kitchen.
You can you can disregard that. That's just an audience poll. It accidentally popped up. I apologize.
These questions, you know, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think of, you know, cures for COVID. I can't be already answered that question.
Luke, do you want to, can I inconvenience you to read the next question?
Sure. This is from Anonymous. Mindy, you're so funny. I've been stuck at home with...
By the way, can I just, like, I love how much passion you said, Mindy, you're so funny. There was an exclamation point on there, Mindy, I promise.
And I bet that when I'm not on the show, Luke's like, so let me sing your song and dance. Yeah. Okay.
He actually is a great performer. Luke is a great performer.
No, I'm not. I'm sticking with my pilot career. Okay, I've been stuck at home with the pandemic for almost a year, so thank you for the laughs. The question I have is, growing up with such an iconic father, did you feel like you had a normal childhood, protected from the limelight, or did you realize how famous your dad was?
I think I was very sheltered. When we go to Lake Tahoe, my dad would be performing at this hotel, Harrah's, and my mother would have like a security guard. We'd stay at these houses. And Ed, there's something with the battery saver mode. I've been doing this now. It's been like the Jerry Lewis telethons. You better check that out. These people love me. So anyway, they would have a security guard sitting in the living room all night, you know, like to protect us. But I also think I knew at some points, like how famous my dad was, because I did love it when I would go to the show and he would introduce me from the audience, and then we'd be like, that's his daughter, that's his, you know, of course, as an adult, you know, I'm in therapy forever, but at the time when they were like, that's his daughter, and it made me feel good, you know, and I knew he was a star. And sometimes we would go out and, you know, there'd be photographers, and especially being with the Newharts, because my parents were best friends with them, and my mother is still best friends with Bob and his wife. And I think going out with the two of them and all of us together, I definitely think I knew that, you know, he was famous, and I liked that.
And that is something that's commendable to your dad and Bob, you know, that they did bring you along, that they did do that, because there's a lot of comics, you know this, Mindy, where they can't wait to get on the road and get away from the family and do whatever that life is.
As much as my dad, you know, was this tough guy at home, my mother ran the show, and she was always, and of course my father went along with whatever she said. And it's funny because my parents and the Newharts were also like very conservative, you know, it's like they would go, you know, in the 70s, there'd be a party, and if anyone brought out like, well, then it was called, I don't know, now it's weed again, but it was pot and all these like grass, right? So they were always like, oh, there's grass, we're leaving, you know. So they were, both of them, I mean, they've been married 60 years. It was all about, you know, the family and keeping the family together.
So Mindy, I think if you write a book, it should be called Forever in Therapy.
Absolutely, James. I mean, I'm going to have a very long session right after this. I'm like, Luke didn't look at me, turned away from me. You know, I think they're revoking his pilot's license. And Jake didn't know where he was. He thought he was in Romper Room. That's not a Disney show, Mindy.
So, Mindy, we have gone way longer than we really appreciate how long you've
Thank you.
I was doing something with Katie Couric. What, I missed that, Ed? Oh. All right, well, that's fine. Lester Holt will have to wait.
Yeah,
with Luke.
We appreciate you snubbing Lester and Katie for us. This was an absolute blast and honor for all of us. You were amazing. For those of you who are here live, stick around. We will do the after party. We'll chat it up with you guys. For those of you who are listening in the future or watching on YouTube, Thank you so much. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. You never know where you're going to want to do it. Review and rate. This has been an absolute treat and treasure for me.
Thank you.
I want to thank the whole cast. Thank you, James and Luke. And God, Jake and Mando, you two, I love you two as a team, like a dance team. And all of the crew and God, everybody, all of the people like from Tom Cruise's background crew, I'm going to yell at later, that's been working on Dave's podcast. Thank you all so much.
We do have it's quite an operation here. And everyone, give Mindy a huge round of applause. She is amazing.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. This is the Unofficial Disney Tonight Show. See you soon.